Hello everyone, this is the first lesson of the mental health unit that we will be going over this week. My name is Andrew Holloway. I'm using a recording app that only allows 15 minutes worth of recording, so I'm going to try to get through this in a little under the 20 minutes that are allotted and do it at 15, but we've got some activities and stuff that we'd have to skip over anyways if we were in class. So just try to hang in with me, and we're going to try to make this work as best as possible through this online format. So in a brief overview of this unit, there will be plenty of topics discussed in this chapter regarding mental health, and a few are signs and symptoms of mental health, different types of healthy/unhealthy mental health among student athletes, mental health in professional sports, attention, prevention, and care for the mental health of others and yourself, ways to promote healthy mental health, and lastly, ways to overcome unhealthy mental health. So right now we'd be having a pre-assessment. If we were in a classroom, I would be telling everyone to go on Kahoot and type in the game pin, and we just have a little pre-assessment to see where students are at, have a little bit of interaction, make it a little fun, and just see who has prior knowledge of mental health and the prevalence that it has today, and who does not. And then we get started with our lesson. So mental health is defined as the level of psychological well-being. All right, guys, we're gonna be having a quiz at the end of this, and there are a few important things to remember. One of them is this. I'll just tell you straight up. So if we were in a classroom, I'd say write that down. Write that definition down for sure. So now we've got a little activity here. We've got characteristics of mental health. It's going to work a little bit differently now that we're doing this online format. I was going to have students read these characteristics aloud, just one at a time, just pointing out people in the class, calling on them to read, and then we'd vote and see whether or not it's a healthy or unhealthy characteristic. Most of them are pretty much a given, but some of them are a little bit more confusing, and since we're doing it online, I'm just going to read them off slowly, and you will decide in your head whether it's healthy or unhealthy, and then I'll tell you. Alright, so some characteristics. We've got feel good about themselves. Would that be healthy or an unhealthy mental health characteristic? Yes, correct. That would be healthy. Then we've got feel sad or down. Healthy or unhealthy? Unhealthy. Confused or reduced ability to concentrate. This is a little bit more confusing of a thing because you're like, okay, well, just because someone's confused doesn't mean it's an unhealthy characteristic. But remember, this is not just if you have one problem that you would be concerned about your mental health. This is if you have multiple unhealthy characteristics in your life that you see about yourself. Then maybe you need to go to the doctor. Maybe you need to go and get it checked out. Or if you see someone else with these characteristics, then it's cause for concern for them. Become overwhelmed by emotions. I think that's actually supposed to be not become overwhelmed by emotions, but it just says become by emotion. So either way, we'll just go with become. Become overwhelmed by emotions. That would be an unhealthy characteristic. Excessive fears or worries. That would be an unhealthy characteristic. Lasting and satisfying relationships. That would be a healthy characteristic. Being comfortable with other people, healthy. Extreme mood changes, unhealthy. Withdrawal from friends and activity, unhealthy. And you've got some more here. We've got they can laugh at themselves and with others. I'm just going to read these off and you can decide in your head what you think, and then I'll recap. Significant tiredness, low energy. Detachment from reality, delusions. They have respect for themselves and for others even if there are differences. Inability to cope with problems. They are able to accept life's disappointments. Trouble understanding and relating to situations/people. They can meet life's demands and handle problems that arise. And lastly, excessive anger, hostility, or violence. Alright, so now that I've read them all, we can see that number 1, 4, 6, and 8 are all healthy characteristics, which leave 2, 3, 5, 7, and 9 to be unhealthy characteristics. So now that we're done with that little activity that would be more fun in person, now we're moving on to the effects of mental health, mental illness. So, as I touch on this topic, mental illness doesn't only affect the person that is dealing with it. Obviously, that is the greatest effect is on them, and it definitely affects every aspect of their life, but it also affects the people around them. It affects society as a whole. And so, as we touch on this topic, just keep that in mind that it is a really stinky situation, but it's not only affecting them, it's actually affecting a very, very broad range of people. So some effects on patient are decreased quality of life, educational difficulties, lowered productivity and poverty, social problems, vulnerability to abuse. Alright, so, whoops. So I'm going to read this little paragraph here. It's got, education is often compromised when early onset mental disorders prevent individuals from completing their education or successfully pursuing a career. A study shows that individuals with a psychological disorder were significantly less likely to complete high school, enter college, or receive a college degree compared to their peers without mental health. In addition, psychological disorders resulted in lower individual productivity due to unemployment, missed work, and reduced fail to seek or cannot find employment due to mental illness. Reduced productivity at work. A 2001 study found that 5 to 6 million U.S. workers aged 16 to 54, very broad range there, lose or fail to seek or cannot find employment due to mental illness. Of mentally ill individuals who are earnings and decreased employment potential, but mentally ill individuals reduce their annual income by $3,500 to $6,000 annually. So, as another study shows, mental illness and poverty interact in a negative cycle, in which poverty acts as a risk factor for mental illness, and mental illness increases the risk that individuals will drift into or remain in poverty. So that's just a pretty big effect on a patient. I mean, it affects their livelihood. I mean, we all know money doesn't mean everything, but money is a big part of people's lives, and it's something that keeps people going, and it provides for every means of their life, basically, other than potentially their faith or those sort of things, if they have one. But so it really takes a toll on a patient, not just mentally, not just with their health, but I mean with their lives as a whole. So effects on family/caregivers. Family/caregivers are sometimes unable to work at full capacity, which therefore then puts them at an increased risk of poverty. If they're so concerned with helping the person with a mental health problem, if they're having to give so much effort, so much time to help them out, honestly, they aren't able to work at full capacity oftentimes. That can create chronic stress for them, and time management can be a huge issue. They can take a hit through family/caregivers that are helping take care of a person that's suffering from mental illness, such as providing transportation, offering financial assistance, helping with household work and cleaning, and money management. Just you have a lot less time for all those things, and you've got to try to squeeze them all together. So now another article here is, for instance, a 2006 study in Botswana investigated the experiences of families caring for a mentally ill family member. The study was conducted using in-depth interviews, focus group discussions, and field observations in Gaborone, the capital city, and Molopolo, a rural village. Although the extended family reported the lack of financial and medical resources at the family and community levels made it difficult. Caregivers in Limpopo revealed that many caregivers felt that their own physical and mental well-being was at risk, particularly when caring for a violent or destructive family member. Caregivers also reported social isolation due to their family members' mental illness, as caregiving duties prevented them from attending social events such as funerals or church services. So it's just it really takes a toll on the family, just time wise, but also it can affect their social life and the social how they're accepted socially and all that sort of stuff. So effects on society. The WHO estimates mental health problems cost developed nations between 3 to 4% of gross national product, several $billion. Maternal depression may put infants at risk for low birth weight, childhood health problems, or incomplete immunization, which could all prove to be fatal problems. An article here says a study in the Pinellas County, Florida jail found that not having outpatient mental health treatment was significantly associated with increased risk of misdemeanor arrest and days of incarceration. In national incarceration statistics, national data from the 2002 survey of inmates in local jails revealed that homelessness was significantly more prevalent among the inmate population as compared to the general U.S. population, and inmates who had been homeless were significantly more likely than were other inmates to have mental health and substance abuse problems. So the association between mental health and homelessness is huge. People that suffer from mental illnesses are more likely to be homeless, and then especially are more likely to end up in jail after going through that homeless period. So now you've got some statistics here to finish out these last 3 or so minutes. We've got perceived knowledge of mental illness. So we've got how informed people believe others are in the green, and how informed they think they are in the red. As you can see, it's a flip-flop. People think, oh, I know this. 36% of people are slightly informed, believe they're slightly informed, and they believe that 43 and 39% of people are either slightly uninformed or very uninformed. So people are very they don't really see the full picture, because everyone's really thinking, oh, I know about it, but you don't. In reality, I think a lot of us are really know a lot less than we think we do ourselves. So the statistic on the right, you've got 1 in 5 adults have a mental health condition. That's over 40 million Americans, more than the populations of New York and Florida combined. You've got youth mental health is worsening. Rates of youth depression, 8.5% in 2011, 11.1% in 2014, and I'm only thinking it's going up from there. Even with severe depression, 80% are left with no or insufficient treatment. Then we've got access to insurance has increased, so did access to treatments. Healthcare reform has reduced the rates of uninsured adults. However, 19% uninsured in states that did not expand Medicaid, and 13% remained uninsured in states that did expand Medicaid. So this mental health insurance still hasn't turned a whole new leaf. It's not where it should be today in America. And we've got some other statistics about Vermont, and then 1 in every 1,000 individuals in a profession have a mental health professional there. But I want to read this bottom one because we're involved. It's got Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama had the least access to care and highest rates of imprisonment in America. There are over 57,000 people with mental health conditions in prison and jail in those states alone. That's enough to fill Madison Square Garden 3 times. That is nuts, and we are a part of that. We live in Arkansas right now. So now, mental health statistics among high school students. Mental health stigma statistics. Face of stigma and discrimination are damaged by the stigma. That part's a little confusing up there on the left. We'll just jump down to that bottom one. You got 90% of suicide victims had underlying mental illnesses. And mental illness stats among the American adult population, as you can see, the vast majority, 31% of people with co-occurring mental health and addiction orders. Then you've got this right here, and I'm actually going to also skip to this one since we're running out of time. As you can see, depression among patients with medical illnesses. So this is the percentage of people with mental illnesses that have this medical problem already. Disorder that they're a patient. And as you can see, eating disorder patients, over 75% of those have mental illnesses. Alright, I'm going to try to figure out how to combine the next video with this one so that I don't have to stop just quite yet.